Hello there, I'm Reverend Yan, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So we are in week 46 of a 52-week Sunday Talk series based on the book by Oren J. Sofer, Your Heart Was Made for This. This week, the theme is contentment, and today's talk is entitled Daily Examen, the Enneagram of Our Discontent. So today in part one, I'll share some reflections on a spiritual or contemplative contentment, what that means. In part two, I'll talk about the contemplative practice known as Examen, which is like a 500-year-old practice developed by St. Ignatius of Loyola. And then in part three, we'll go around what I'm calling the Enneagram of our discontent, having a little fun with that term from Shakespeare there, to invite you to notice for yourself with compassion, as usual, your own points of suffering where you drop into that discontent. So our goal today, I feel like it's important to say at the outset that our goal is not to pursue contentment, not to make ourselves happy. If any of you out there have tried that, as I have found that it doesn't actually work, that the pursuit of contentment or happiness will tend to push it further away, and then even making it kind of a goal of like, oh, now it's a spiritual goal, can actually keep it at bay as well by making it something that we then compare our present moment and our present snapshot of ourselves to. So instead of doing that, I encourage you to really see this as a path of inviting the presence of spirit, whatever whatever that means for you, inviting grounded presence, inviting the power of your divine light, infinite love, inviting that into this worldly or human pursuit for inner peace, happiness, contentment, so that it is not run by the ego, run by the personality type structure. So we can better see the ways that the habits of our personality types actually lead us further away rather than toward contentment. And then our types coupled with the mantra of the world, if you will, at least our Western and modern world, that says buy more, do more, have more, that you're not good enough, that all the media and all the ads and all the social media says that you will never make, right? Like um, there's always another gym to join or car to buy or better fridge for your family if you're more practical in that sense, right? And so how can we, in the midst of the way the egoic structure moves outward and then listens to the culture of the world, how can we bring in a sense of the sacred so that we can be steeped in this deep inner peace, not because we should, not because we're better people, but because we deserve to not suffer so much. So with that, let's begin with part one. I'd like to share, actually, today I have more than usual, like quotes from Sofer. I really like what he says about contentment. So he writes, contentment teaches us to feel at peace with things just as they are. It is a state of well-being, satisfaction, and ease that arises when craving is absent. To feel content, we must be released from wanting something other than what is right here, right now. In contrast, the Dalai Lama said this about discontent. When you are discontent, you always want more, more, more. Your desire can never be satisfied. But when you practice contentment, You can say to yourself, oh, yes, I already have everything that I really need. The tricky thing here, as we move from this notion of contentment based on the world conforming to what the ego says it wants, versus like a deeper kind of contentment. I want to quote from Sofer here. He says, a superficial contentment arises when the world aligns with our preferences. When we like external conditions, craving ceases and the heart grows happy. Yet this contentment is unsteady and fickle, vanishing as soon as conditions shift. How long after a delightful meal or thrilling purchase until we resume a hankering for something to occupy our attention? Lasting contentment comes neither from getting what we want nor from avoiding discomfort. So I want to really take a moment with that. Because sure, it's like we're not downgrading. We're not saying it's bad if you feel contentment that like, I mean, I know for me, a really good bite of pie, maybe more than one bite, so good, just that moment. Or or the contentment of feeling my needs met in the sense of hopping into bed and feeling that crisp, clean sheet. Um, the contentment even of taking a hike yesterday and feeling the crunch of the leaves beneath my boot and the quietude of the hiking trail we were on out at Unity Village where I went to seminary. So beautiful. All these things, moments of contentment, beautiful. So we're not discounting that here, but it's more of a recognition that this that enduring or spiritual contentment is not dependent on worldly conditions, right? And that rises and falls based on it. And that contentment is also, as Sofer just said, not about avoiding discomfort. It's not complacency. It's not dead and apathetic. Some of us can believe, oh, well, if I'm content, I'm not going to do anything to help my life or to help the world. I remember when I thought, oh, yes, if I'm content with myself, I'm not going to do any personal growth work, and what will I be like, right? And so there are fears that come with contentment, even as we desire it. So gratitude, according to Sofer, can give rise to contentment. But I like this little subtle piece here. He says gratitude can give rise to contentment, but contentment is a quieter happiness, a stillness in which the heart rests with what is, finding satisfaction in the here and now. So satisfaction then is actually it's a radical act. It's a radical attitude in a world that says it's never enough. Um, and so for rights, contentment challenges a global economy that feeds desires and destroys habitats and ecosystems, distinguishing fundamental needs from superfluous wants. Contentment frees us from longing for something different or better. It asks, what would it be like to live with less? A powerful question for those of us who have more than we need. When we lack contentment, participate in this global, insatiable hunger that hurts all of us, really, because it hurts the earth, it hurts the habitats. We tend to look to others, politicians, business people, oh, they're greedy, but there's a way in which we have this insatiable greed, right? Out of this craving that we have not learned how to be with in a way where we don't merely act upon the insatiability of the desires that are cultivated by our egoic structure, as well as fostered by a world that teaches us on a daily basis that we need more things and we need to become better all the time. Okay, on that happy note, let's move into part two, the examen. So This is a practice that is recommended for just like a 10 to 15-minute time period. I mean, I think ideally, historically, twice a day, but I'm going to just recommend it at least once a day this week. I'm going to invite myself to this practice because it's not my regular practice, actually. And examen, I mean, the word examine, really relates to like the examining of our conscience, right? And I know that can trigger a lot of us who, have been hurt by more punitive religious backgrounds. But I really want to encourage you to take a hard look at yourself. I think that sometimes we do a lot of spiritual bypassing when we're not willing to like entertain the fact that there are days where we act out unskillfully. There's a lot of blaming in our modern societal circles of like, oh, so and so's a narcissist. It's never me, and just really taking a look at where did I fall short of my own values, not in a way where I have to then condemn myself to hell, but it's more about like, oh, I can still honor that I am whole, that I am fundamentally good, and I can honor that I err, I make mistakes, I do unskillful things sometimes. And so that's what I want to invite us to kind of go to see, to take a good look each day through this practice. So it has 5 steps. It begins with 1, relish the good. And so you might begin by really noticing the good that happened in your day. Like today, we had our very first snow, as you can kind of see out the window. It was beautiful. And we took a walk outside and played with the snow a little bit and even drove around a little bit safely. And and yet, while it's freezing out there, it's cozy and warm in here. And I do feel really, really blessed to have this room and home office with lots of plants and a little Christmas lighting that I just added, and just, yeah, relishing the good. How about you? And then in this moment, the second step is request the spirit. So inviting in an awareness of the presence of infinite love, just allowing that to be here to help me review my day, And so in this moment, I might notice that I had moments of feeling inadequate. I mean, I hate to say it, but I can still be really judgy about my own looks, for instance. I think I ate something that I'm allergic to, and like my cheeks uh, got like inflamed today, and I could see how, you know, uh, the threeness in me is like, like I can't just enjoy the day. Now I'm feeling bad that I don't feel up to par. It's wild, the suffering that our egos cause ourselves, right? And so I can see little ways where it's like, oh, I'm not at my best. Do I really want to record today? Like, I really had that thought. I'm like, so of course I'm recording. So, but I mean, just to be really honest, like these are the like inane thoughts that cross my mind. And I'll even confess that as a result of it, I had another piece of pie. So I'm just being human here. So I'm like, oh, now I feel worse. So, but so reviewing the day, I was like, what is this threeness, right? How is this threeness and societal need for looking good all combined together to create discontent in a way that is really, if I really take a good look at it, is completely unnecessary, right? It's not going to deeply harm me in any way. It's really my ego is like finding things, right? Oh, let's work on this, Yan. Let's improve this. So reviewing the day. Step 4, repent from any wrongdoing. And again, the language is old, but I want to say it's more about, to me, repenting then is about not going down that train of thought, right? Not following it, but changing my mind about this thought and shifting it, but also holding the point of suffering within my own heart to bring divine love to that, to say, oh yeah, there's something built into my system that habitually tells this kind of story. And it is an ongoing source of egoic like discontent that it doesn't allow me to rest in God, in to rest in love. And then the next step is to resolve to live well tomorrow, to ask for help in moments when I might be tempted to fall in the way that I did today. Again, this didn't really, in today's case, hurt anyone except for maybe my complaining about it to my partner, just, my face is puffy. I better take Allegra, but I mean, it's relatively harmless, but it's not always. And if I've taken to an extreme, I have to look at things like, well, then how much of my attention that could be spent reading valuable books is then, spent on trying to improve what I look like, right? I mean, if I'm going to be really honest, it's just really ridiculous. And I think that becoming a better person for me, like being more in love with life, that all relates to letting go of some of these things that are uh, discontented uh, parts that will never be content. I'll never fix it enough. I'll never fix my face enough to feel completely happy, right? But when I let that go, when I renounce it, there's something there for me. So with that, I want to move into patterns now that I've disclosed some of the more embarrassing aspects of how my brain works. I'd love to go through all the numbers and share for this section of reviewing your day. I want you to consider at each point on the Enneagram that you have not just points of discontent, but also points of gifts of consolations that could be related to your type as well. So be aware of that. But here I want to focus on catching yourself in a spiral that can actually that is a point of suffering for you, because you deserve to not suffer so much. We all do. I do too. And so some Enneagram patterns. At point 1, you might, in reviewing your day, at the end of the day during the Examen period, notice when you felt frustration or resentment when things didn't go the way you decided they should. Notice how you resist contentment because you conflate it with laziness. For the 2, notice when you might have gone looking for ways to help even when your help wasn't sought or perhaps even wanted. Notice how it might have come when you were just sitting there, possibly becoming content. And then notice when you resisted that contentment because you conflated it with self-indulgence or selfishness. Yeah. And for the 3, speaking from personal experience, notice how much aggravation, insecurity, or not enoughness you might have experienced today in moments as you made efforts to either play a role in your family or at work, or in your efforts to get others to respect or admire you, right? And notice how you delay contentment because you don't feel you really deserve it, or how you resist it out of fear that contentment equals, this is a death sentence for the 3, complacency. Yeah. And at point 4, notice how attracted you were today to the familiarity of sadness. Like it's this cloak you want to cover yourself in, and somehow all that sadness will protect you from being the worst thing ever, which is superficial and a fake, right? Notice how often you resist contentment because it causes you to feel exactly that. Like you are fake if you are content. So for the 5, notice when and where you've gone overboard with boundaries because you feared others will ask you to do or give too much. Notice how you conflate contentment with stark individualism, disconnected from life rather than being unified with the divine, unified with spirit, unified with all that is. Notice that. And for the 6, notice how often you did not do something that you might enjoy or like, but you didn't do because you're scared to lose something you value, whether it's your health, your wealth, your relationships. And notice how you mistrust contentment because it feels like irresponsibility. And for the 7, notice when you had a hard time being present in the moment and you kept leaving the moment bored by it, only to wonder what next or what else? What else? There's another idea, there's another book, there's another thought, there's another option you can have. And the suffering of that next and what else? Notice how you fear that all contentment really means, like that what it really is just missing out on opportunities for happiness. So you're not going to even let yourself really have happiness because you're afraid you'll miss out on other happiness. And for the 8, notice when you get caught in fault loops, worrying about who is to blame and whether people will get what they deserve. Notice how this fires you up, and being fired up rather than content is your substitute for feeling alive, and you resist contentment because in comparison, it might just feel dead. And then finally, for the 9, notice how you think you love contentment, actually, and shouldn't we all? But most of the time, you aren't truly content. And to get there, you have to self-annihilate, lose yourself, lose your opinion, lose your desire to keep things feeling just even keel for you and for everyone. So notice how you conflate contentment with comfort or self-annihilation. Whew. And so again, this is why we invite the Spirit in from the beginning, the presence of love or compassion, grounded presence to allow you to see these without damning yourselves for having these experiences, but holding them in compassion and love. And so here, the prayer of Examen allows you to reflect at the end of the day and allows you to see the ways that you stray from your deeper knowing and your deeper peace. And so you can also close, especially when it feels really heavy, just allowing yourself this moment to ask the divine to show you when the discontent took over. You know, just going, oh yeah, notice that, notice when it took over. And then notice how it feels in your body. Like, oh yeah, I felt that. Like, oh, like down. You know, when I have this discontent because I feel like I'm underperforming, that I'm not showing up as I'd ideally want to. There's like the desire, it's like a down, like it's like a hiding, I think, that I want to have. It's like, oh, you know, and so see, you can feel what your own experience is like in your body, whether it's the boundariness of the 5 or the flightiness of the 7. And can you just allow it and breathe around this discontent? Take a moment. And see what it's like to just honor it and allow it to be, and to hand it over to this larger presence, this larger love. And then as we close, I want to invite you to make sure that you also be balanced in your review of the day. As you might notice that there were moments where, yes, you might have had moments of resentment as a 1, but then also look for moments of serenity that you might have even overlooked then, right? Like there was contentment there, but you overlooked it. Moments of serenity for the 2, moments of humility. For the 3, moments of authenticity. For the 4, moments of equanimity. For the 5, moments of generosity. For the 6, moments of courage. For the 7s, moments of like grounded presence and enoughness here now. For the 8, moments of vulnerability and innocence and receiving in the day. And for the 9, moments of aliveness, just sheer unapologetic aliveness and of showing up. So I want to close with words from Sofer. The deepest contentment is not based on external conditions, but on being with things just as they are. Relinquishing preferences, abandoning resistances, we access the peace of unconditional contentment. Rather than spiritually bypassing the pain in our hearts and the world, the contemplative's contentment arises from a radical acceptance of the truth. The road to contentment includes our discontent. It welcomes all that we feel. Namaste.